Chapter 14, in which Tom goes to the theater. Shortly after 6 o'clock of the following evening, the brakeman, throwing out the door of the Pullman car, bawled out what sounded like hydrostatic, but was really intended to convey the correct railroad pronunciation of Cincinnati. Tom seized his valise and hurried through the car into the depot. "Why, Tommy!" cried our old, or young, friend Mr. Meadow, rushing up and catching Tom's disengaged hand. "Welcome to Cincinnati. Glad to see you. You look so well. You've grown too, and you're improved ever so much." "I'm really glad to see you, Uncle," said Tom, returning the hearty handshake with no less heartiness. "Indeed I am. You've changed too. Your mustache is very plain now, isn't it? You're dressed awful stylishly. I'm glad I've had my new clothes on, or I'd feel ashamed to walk with you. How do you like Cincinnati?" "It's a splendid place, Tommy," answered Mr. Meadow as they walked out of the depot and made towards a streetcar. "The people are very nice. There's more amusement here than in St. Louis." Tom took a stealthy side glance at his uncle. Oh, these little boys. Some of them read characters with an intuition which humbles the widest experience. "Yes, but I thought you came here to study law." "So I did, but I'm kept so busy that I haven't settled down yet." "You look heavy around the eyes, as if you stayed up late, Uncle." "Yes, I suffer from insomnia a great deal," answered Mr. Meadow, puzzled to find that he was annoyed under Tom's innocent analysis. "How have you been doing since you left St. Louis?" "Pretty well, Uncle. I made a bad start, but now I'm doing better. You see, Uncle, I'm trying to get ready to make my first communion." "Indeed?" "Yes. I hope it will be the happiest day of my life." A few earnest, sympathetic words from Mr. Meadow at this juncture might have raised their mutual relations to a higher level, but Mr. Meadow did not understand boys. His influence on Tom, in consequence, was bad. He said, "Here's our car. Jump on, Tommy." His chance was gone. He noticed a strange expression on Tom's face. It was as if the boy had received a blow. Now, there was nothing in the words of the uncle to produce this effect, but in our mutual relations there is something more potent than words. Manner, expression, and sympathy, or the want of it, are the chief causes that go towards gaining or losing our influence upon one another. Mr. Meadow felt that a wall of separation had at once arisen between himself and his nephew, that their intercourse hereafter was to be on the surface. He fell into a train of reflection suggested by this incident, and, while Tom, with the lively interest of a boy now in a strange city, took note of everything in his new surroundings, the uncle maintained silence till, at a signal from him, the car stopped at the street crossing. "Here we are, Tom. Jump off. We'll be just in time for supper." Walking to an adjoining square, Mr. Meadow pointed to a cheerful 2-story building. "Is that your house, Uncle?" "That's where I board. All the rooms in the upper floor are mine." As Mr. Meadow had remarked, they were in time for supper, at which meal, owing to the fact that 2 young ladies with their father and mother were present, Tom was content to eat little and contribute his share to the conversation by an occasional "yes'm" and "no'm," which, as he directed either reply indiscriminately to either sex, did not serve to set him at ease, though it sent the young ladies into a series of giggles, till Tom, through sheer force of indignation, recovered both tongue and appetite, to the admiration of all present. After supper, Mr. Meadow proposed the theater. Tom was delighted with the suggestion, and an hour later both were seated in the pit of a close building, waiting for the curtain to rise. Tom, it must be confessed, was somewhat astonished at his surroundings. The audience failed to impress him favorably, and the sight of waiters hurrying about with their trays did not suit his ideas at all. "Is this a first-class theater, Uncle?" "Yes, that is. It's a first-class variety. Would you like a glass of beer or soda before the show begins?" "Nah," said Tom, in his disgust, entering into and distorting his pronunciation, and he wished at that moment that he were back at St. Mars. The curtain presently lifted, and for an hour or so he tried to enjoy the jigs, comic songs, and what was announced on the program as a screaming farce. But he found it weary work to keep amused. The atmosphere, too, soon gave him a headache. Mr. Meadow seemed to be perfectly happy. Tom glanced at him curiously. "I'm glad I'm not made that way," he thought. If this whole business isn't what Mr. Middleton calls unhealthy, then I'm pretty stupid. It's coarse and vulgar. Say, Uncle, he resumed aloud as the curtain fell upon the screaming farce. Screaming actors would be truer. I'm getting a headache, and if you've got no objection, I'll go outside and take a breath of fresh air for a while. Now, Mr. Meadow was very dry and desirous also of conversing between the acts with a few young men whom he did not purpose introducing to Tom. So he caught eagerly at the opportunity. Certainly, Tommy. Here's $1 to buy some candy. Don't go far. Come back soon. All right, Uncle. Tom went out. As the next chapter will show, he never entered the theater again.